Hey, listeners and viewers. It's Sunday in South Carolina. Welcome to the Touchdowns Podcast, episode 10. I'm your host, Beck, with Thomas, talking a weekend recap. The Gamecocks didn't play this week, and you're only guaranteed 12 Saturdays a year where your team plays, but there is something special about a bye week when you can sit back and just enjoy the ball on Saturday without worrying about whether your team's going to win or lose. So I had a great Saturday yesterday, taking in the action. A lot of things happened, a lot of things to talk about, even without a South Carolina game happening. So with that being said, jumping right into it, I want to talk about maybe the lamest thing I saw yesterday, which was Johnny Manziel on the sideline for Vanderbilt. So apparently he's mentoring Diego Pavia, who's a 24-year-old in his sixth year of college. So whatever that relationship is, but I was taken aback by that because his alma mater, A&M, has a home game. Not saying he has to be in College Station all the time, but for a Heisman Trophy winner to be on another team's sideline, repping another team in a big game, thought that was a lame look for Johnny. And I mean, just more material to shit on A&M with, because typically nothing cool comes out of A&M. And then the coolest thing that happened to that school was Johnny Manziel, and there he is, repping another SEC team at a different SEC game. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, Thomas, but that was just one thing that stuck out to me outside of the actual football that was played yesterday. People were talking about College Game Day having Theo Vaughn, who's a Vanderbilt fan, at Bama as the picker. Just some things outside of the actual football that were going on. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I actually texted Ross that I have Theo Vaughn fatigue. And, is he a Vanderbilt fan, or has he just been living in Nashville recently? I thought he was from Louisiana. I thought the whole thing was lame. Johnny Manziel at Vanderbilt mentoring Diego Pavia, I did find weird. But, I chalk it up to Diego Pavia's name is hot right now, and Johnny is probably his main source of income is what he's able to extract from his fame and podcast and internet stuff. So I chalk it up to him just trying to network for himself. He has said on camera that he has something special planned for our game at Texas A&M. And everyone's making a joke that it's just cocaine, because he said that he is going to have a special treat for the locker room, and they'll be the most motivated team in the country that week. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely a lot more non-football headlines in both college and pro football than I remember growing up. But that's part of the growth of the sport, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it just demonstrates the different eras that we're in. A lot of these kids are spending their college playing career at 2 or 3 different schools. Who do they rep? Typically, it's the team that you play your last snap for. For instance, Rattler, he played at Oklahoma, but transferred over to us at South Carolina and played his remaining eligibility out at South Carolina. So you would tend to say he's a South Carolina product as opposed to Oklahoma. But just, I don't know, just something, it made me feel like old man.
Speaking of that,
this is so lame that Johnny's doing this.
I saw an Oklahoma fan try and rep like Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, Jalen Hurts, all as Oklahoma quarterbacks, and I'm like, hey guys, you can't claim Spencer and Jalen, because if if y'all get Spencer, then Bama gets Jalen. And if it just they claimed every quarterback that's ever been on their roster that's in the NFL, and I'm like, that's not really how it works.
Yeah, and it just demonstrates the different era that we're in. It's not the same, obviously, that we had growing up. So that was my old man moment, just thinking that was lame as shit from Johnny. But talking about the actual football game, that was the game of the week for most people would say. College game day was there. Bama with the late cover. I was rooting for Bama in this game. I had them on my DB blitz. I'm, personally sick of Vanderbilt. They've been puffing their chest, and I know they beat the hell out of us, which it stings even more as the more they puff their chest. And I was glad to see them get taken down. Pavia didn't play great. It looked like they jumped out to a nice start, but Bama rallied and ended up winning the game with the late cover, which the bar I was at had a mixed reaction to that final touchdown, as some people were on the Commodores, but I was cheering it up as a Bama cover. But what did you? I mean, we're playing Bama not this upcoming week, but we play them later this month. Did you see anything in this game, Thomas, that Jam Miller comes back from off an injury? He missed the first 3 games, specifically the game against Florida State that Bama lost. He had 22 carries for 136 yards and a touchdown. He makes their offense different. And Ty Simpson's been money ever since that Florida State game. So Bama's looking a little scarier than maybe we thought after Florida State. Florida State now has dropped 2 in a row. They're not looking like a world beater. So there's going to be all the talk of, is that going to end up being a good loss or a bad loss? What do you think? Bama's positioning themselves right now as a legit college football playoff contender, and we're going to have the opportunity to play them in a couple weeks. What are your thoughts on just that game in general and what you saw from Bama and Vandy?
Well, yeah, I definitely think that Jam Miller makes them better, makes their offense more balanced because they have the ability to run the football effectively. Ty Simpson has been playing excellent since week 1. He did throw that pick against Vanderbilt, but overall he's playing really good football. Ryan Williams is starting to come on, but I think that Bernard is their best receiver and their best playmaker overall. They get him the ball in a lot of different ways. So, yeah, the Bama game is going to be a tough one. You have to hope that the talented players that we have on defense can make some plays that day and disrupt what Bama likes to do. And then you got to hope that our home crowd factors in as well. But if we want to, win this coming week, win any of these big matchups that we have, the offense has to play better than it's played so far this season. But I do continue to believe that we're starting to piece it together. I'll cover this more in our preview of LSU, but I think that our offense does have the potential to start playing better, but I think we'll need that to beat Alabama and some of these other teams that we want to beat. As far as, what them beating Vanderbilt means for the playoff picture, I think when it comes to the SEC, the playoff picture is going to change 50 different times between now and week 12. It's going to be a bloodbath. Teams are going to get upset. I mean, I was of the opinion that Texas wasn't that good already, but I do not have them losing that game to Florida. And I think that there will be many more games like that where an SEC team that has no playoff chances whatsoever is able to knock off one of the better teams in the conference at home, or just come out and have a good day. And And so we won't really be able to project who's making it from the SEC, I think, until the very last week of the season. The Big Ten picture is starting to get pretty buttoned up. I think it is Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana. Nobody else really factors in now that Penn State dropped that game to UCLA. The Big 12, I think, is going to be crazy as well. And then the ACC is pretty starting to take – I think in the ACC, really the only contenders that you I would consider would be Miami or Georgia Tech.
Hey, sneaky ACC contender, Virginia. They're 5-1 and 3-0 in the conference.
Do they
have a pretty easy schedule down the stretch.
Do they have to play Miami or Georgia Tech?
No.
They don't play either of those teams?
They don't play either of them in the regular season. I'll pull up Ross, can you pull up Virginia's schedule? But I think one point you made, and I want to talk about the Florida-Texas game. These Florida Gators, Billy, I mean, he just, right when he's dead, he comes back to life like the Undertaker, and they get a win, even though, like you said, Texas isn't that good. They've been hyped just from Arch Manning and because of their brand, and they had the big game against Ohio State at the beginning of the season. So all summer, we're pumping Texas because that first weekend, they wanted that matchup to be as anticipated as possible. They've come out, they're 0-2 in their Power 4 games. They've beat up on some scrubs in between the Ohio State and Florida game. Arch has made a few plays, but overall, he consistently has not been good. And for whatever reason, the SEC did this. They didn't give Texas much of a gauntlet this last year and this year. And we saw Texas get to the SEC championship last year because of what I would say was a much easier schedule than the majority of the conference. I think they played when the standings shook out, they played Georgia, but then they played the other bottom 7 teams in the conference last year. And so you translate that to this year too. It's not as brutal as some of the other schedules, but I still see them probably dropping another 1 or 2 games.
I think they're going to collapse. I think Oklahoma's going to beat them this coming week. They're definitely going to lose to Georgia and Athens. The way they're playing, I think Texas A&M will beat them. They're not good.
Where are the wins? Maybe Mississippi State they'll beat. Who else do they play? But you're right. And then so now it's a big win for Billy in the moment. But looking back on it, will we see it as a big win? I don't know if it's enough to save him. I still think as Ross has up there, fans still want Billy fired. I think Florida fans are not down with this fool's gold win.
There's probably split camp. I'm sure that there's Florida fans that want to fire him even if he were to win out. And I'm sure that there are Florida fans that are now happy and in their minds his seat has cooled down. But that'll be an ongoing situation.
Well, and I mean, Lagway played good yesterday, and the 5-star freshman Dallas Wilson is a stud. And yesterday was the first game he played this year. He had 6 catches, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns against a good Texas defense.
So we thought. We thought Texas had a good defense, but to your point, they've beat up on scrubs, and now, they played Ohio State competitively week 1, and it was a low-scoring game, but that was Julian Saint's first start, so maybe Ohio State's offense just hadn't really started clicking yet. Florida's offense has been terrible this year, and they ran it down Texas's throat. It could be that Texas could be in the exact same boat that Clemson's in, where they have all the talent in the world, they have everything on paper, they have all the draft picks, and they're just not a good, cohesive football team for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Florida's running back is very good, but like they were running it pretty much at will for most of that game.
Yeah. They had 457 yards of offense. That's pretty stout. Controlled the clock, 50% on third down. Did have 2 turnovers, but yeah, Florida, that's the sky was falling in Gainesville, and Billy gets himself a win. Maybe a midseason firing isn't going to
I
happen.
think the only thing that can really like call off the dogs for Billy would be if he beat Georgia. That game, in addition to it being a ranked team, most likely, and a big win, it's a rivalry game. And I think that if he found a way to win that game in the same way that he has just found a way to beat Texas, that might be enough to get some of the fans back in his corner.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Billy, what'd you call him? Cockroach Billy? You can't kill him?
Billy. Can't kill him.
Holy shit. Well, we'll see. Speaking of the sky falling, I do want to talk about Penn State. I mean, come on, man. UCLA had not led for a second of football this entire season. They completely dominate this game against Penn State. Penn State coming off the loss to Oregon. I was never high on Penn State this year. I thought their schedule set up nice, with only having, not having the top echelon games in the Big Ten. So I was, my viewpoint was, even if they don't make the Big Ten championship, they're going to get to 10 wins somehow and sneak in the playoff because they're a brand name and they're in the Big Ten and they have preseason hype all over them. A lot of people were picking them to win the national championship. Drew Aller, Heisman, number 1 overall pick. I mean, an interim coach in UCLA, this is one of the worst losses I've seen in recent college football.
I mean,
James Franklin made it this year.
It's probably the biggest upset since Harbaugh beat Southern Cal at Stanford. Penn State was 25.5-point favorites and they lost outright. I can't think of an upset where the spread was that big and the underdog won outright other than Harbaugh at Stanford beating Southern Cal.
Yeah, I remember that game. That was an awesome game.
But to your point, yeah, I have to take back everything I said about James Franklin last week. He's a loser. They should go find somebody else. I had Penn State in my DB Blitz, but I don't know if anybody else does this. When I'm on a heavy favorite and it's clear that they're not going to cover, I root for them to lose outright. So I was rooting for UCLA for most of the second half. So I'm glad that they actually won that game. Neuheisel is the interim.
Yeah, his son.
I like him. And I watched the post-game interview. He had played quarterback, or he had played it at UCLA before. I don't know what he played, but he had been carried off the field after a win as a player, and they carried him off the field yesterday as well. I think that's what makes college football cool, and I hope that UCLA hires him to be their next head coach.
Yeah, no, that was an awesome win for them. They did a blue out at their stadium, but there was only I saw a video on Twitter. There was 2,000 people there.
Yeah.
I mean, so Penn State, I know James Franklin was bitching about the cross-country travel and this is what the Big Ten signed up for, and all their coaches are complaining about it.
And dude,
that's what happens when you try and pull UCLA and USC into the conference.
There's no playoff destinations that are within driving distance of Penn State. You were going to have to get on a plane if you wanted to win the national championship, you loser. He's talking about travel.
Yeah, that was his excuse.
That's
that is
ridiculous.
Obviously fell on deaf ears. Penn State fans didn't want to hear it. And if Penn State, they're gonna axe James Franklin at the end of this year, because with this loss, and now they're behind Indiana in the pecking order of the Big Ten. That's a huge game. We'll talk about it Wednesday, but Indiana's at Oregon this upcoming weekend. It's a pretty good slate coming up next Saturday. But
I mean, dude, I think that this Penn State loss is so bad that you almost have to downgrade Oregon for playing them close. It's like I continue to fall victim of the transitive property in one way or another, whether I'm thinking that a team is better than they are, or maybe I'm thinking a team is worse than they are because of an outcome of a game. But the more football that I watch this year, I think that there's very, very few complete teams this year. I am going to bump Oregon out of my top three. I think the three best teams in the country today are Ohio State, Miami, and maybe I'll put Bama third. Me not having Ole Miss that high is really just from a lack of me being able to watch them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would put Ole Miss in the top five, and A&M is solid as well.
Yeah, it's, to your point, it is a wide open college football landscape. There's, again, not a dominant team. Even, I would say, Ohio State, their quote unquote best win is Texas, who doesn't look good. I think from a perspective of resume and eye test, you have to put Miami number one right now.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I know that Ohio State hasn't really beat anybody considering what has become of Texas, but they do at least pass the eye test. And
they got players for sure, and
they have good players, and they beat people soundly when they're better.
Yeah. They I think they won 42-3 against Minnesota yesterday. Georgia beats Kentucky by 3 touchdowns. And the other game I want to talk about, Miami, we just were mentioning them as number one. They beat Florida State. They were beating them soundly throughout the game. Florida State makes a little comeback to make the score look better than it really was in the game. Miami's got the best resume, I think, in eye test. I think they're should be ranked number one this week at this point in the season, but I just have a feeling Cristobal is going to lose them a game, and hopefully for Miami fans, it happens in the regular season and not in the playoff. Or I don't know. Sometimes he just makes.
He's a terrible clock manager. I had the over in that game. It was not part of my DB Blitz picks, but I did take the over in that game. And Miami had the ball. I believe they were up 28-19 at the time. And it was 2nd and 7. And Miami threw a pass, and it was incomplete. He is terrible at managing the clock, which, I was happy for because that gave me more life for the over. But, he did use a QB kneel this time, so he's learned a little bit over the years. But he's not a good situational coach.
Yeah, and I think, he is going to cost right. Well, and that's the thing, though, is I even think he made a couple boneheaded decisions in the Notre Dame game, week 1, that left the door open for Notre Dame to almost win that game. But I just think he's gonna cost them a game, and whether that be, as a Miami fan, you pray it's just a regular season game. But right now they're number one in my eyes. And to your point, Thomas, I think Ohio State's 2. 3 is really, it really is a toss up. I'd almost be willing to put Missouri up there near the top 5.
Yeah, I mean,
They
again,
they
like
were again they haven't.
they Bama is at Missouri this week, and I wouldn't be shocked if Missouri beats Bama.
That's gonna be an interesting one. I think that's a noon kickoff though,
It
or is that
is.
a night?
It's noon.
Damn, they screwed Mizzou on that. They screwed Missouri on that one, but
They,
that'll be a great game to
don't worry,
watch.
they gave Missouri us at night. They've given them all the help.
Yeah, the big powerful brands they needed to play them at night like South Carolina, but overall it was a day where 4 top 14 teams lost. We've touched on Texas and Penn State. Iowa State also lost to Cincinnati. They were ranked number 14 and undefeated. The only L I took in the DB Blitz, but I think Iowa State losing, I thought they could still compete in the Big 12. It's only one loss, but it's looking like Texas Tech might be the favorite in the Big 12. And I don't know if the Big 12 will sneak another team in to the 12 team playoff. So that'll be interesting coming down the stretch, how the Big 12 shakes out, and if they could, because it's all about, as a South Carolina fan, we have 2 losses already. 3 could potentially eliminate us, but if we somehow run the table and go 10-2, or even if we are 9-3, who did we lose to? When did we lose to them? Because that's what the talk last year. We're 9-3. We're on a hot streak, but Ole Miss and Alabama had the head-to-head versus. So it was tough to make an argument compelling enough to get it. None of those 3 teams ended up getting in. But when you start to dissect it at the end of the year, it really does matter who you lose to, and those head-to-heads are going to come in because, again, the SEC is going to be carnage. The meat of the schedule for all the SEC teams is coming up, and everyone's going to be beating everyone.
I mean,
so,
I think that if we found a way to win out, like that would.
I think if we win out, we're guaranteed. I'm talking about.
You're talking about possibility of getting in at 9-3.
Yes.
Well, in order for that to happen, we definitely need Virginia, who you just mentioned, to lose.
I mean, dude,
they play Washington. They play Washington State, North Carolina, Cal, Wake Forest, Duke, Virginia Tech. I don't see many teams on that list that
they're going to be 11-1.
Right, so that's a
in
killer
the
for
ACC
us.
championship.
That's a killer for us. No, because they wouldn't be in the ACC championship if Georgia Tech and Miami are both undefeated. Georgia Tech and Miami don't play each other in the regular season. So,
what's the tiebreaker for ACC championship?
If Georgia Tech and Miami are both undefeated, they would be in the ACC championship. Because
why though? UVA's undefeated.
UVA lost to NC State.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they would.
I thought they were undefeated in the conference.
But that's better for them. They'd be sitting there at 11-1, and they wouldn't have to go to the championship game. They would be kind of like protected. I mean, if we want to start talking about us getting in at 9-3, we need Virginia to lose probably 2 games, or at least 1 game. We need Notre Dame to lose again. We need the Big 12 to absolutely consume itself and have Texas Tech be the only team that makes it. I think for us to get in at 9-3, there have to be 5 SEC teams in the field, and we have to gobble up all of the at-large bids that are not the Group of 5 spot.
Yeah, but that's the thing, though, too, is that there might be, just because everyone's good right now. Ole Miss is undefeated. A&M's undefeated. Missouri, OU. I mean, Tennessee. But we're going to play, obviously, LSU, Oklahoma, Bama, A&M, and Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, us winning out would do a lot of the work for us in and of itself. Like we said, Bama and Missouri play each other next week. One of those teams has to lose. A lot of these teams that are ahead of us play each other.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it though, and I don't think anyone in the SEC is going to have less than 2 losses. That's a bold prediction right there. No one's going to go through the SEC schedule and have less than 2 losses at the end of the year.
Well, especially, I mean, like I said, I think Oklahoma's going to beat Texas, so that would drop Texas to 3-3 and effectively kind of push them out of the conversation. Yeah. But then Texas still has enough talent that they could sneak up and bite somebody at some point later.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Who are they going to bite? They play. I guess they do play Georgia.
They play Georgia. They play Texas A&M.
Yeah, true. They also play Vandy November 1st, which Vandy is still very much in the conversation. As much as I hate to say it, I hope Vandy. I'm rooting for Vandy's downfall, but yeah, it's gonna be carnage. So I do think it depends on who you beat, and these head-to-heads are gonna. But like to your point, the transitive property, Vandy beats us, Alabama beats Vandy, and then we beat Alabama. There's going to be so many conversations like that because a head-to-head, we're going to have a head-to-head.
We do have the quarterback didn't play the second half asterisk on the Vandy.
We had that against LSU last year, and it didn't mean shit.
That's because we weren't going up against LSU. The thing that killed us last year is the teams that we were competing against, Bama and Ole Miss, had head-to-head over us, and Lenoris did play in those games. Had we been like if LSU had beat Alabama, and at the end of the season it was a 9-3 South Carolina team versus a 9-3 LSU team, we might have had more of an argument against that team, against LSU, because Lenoris didn't play the second half, and it was pretty clear that we would have beat them had he played the second half.
Yeah,
but the teams that we were trying to jump, Lenoris played in both of those games, and they won, and we lost both of those games.
Yeah, very true. It's going to be fun to talk about. Hopefully, we play well on the field and can keep ourselves in the conversation, because it's going to be an awesome back half to the season, which we're already halfway through. College football always goes so fast. Like I said, you're only guaranteed 12 Saturdays a year to watch your team, and it always just seems to come and go. But first half thoughts, just whether they're about South Carolina or just the college football landscape in general, what are your thoughts on the first half of the season, and what are you expecting for the second half of the season, Thomas?
I'll start with South Carolina first, and then I'll do broad picture. Obviously, our offense is not what we thought it would be this year. I think we're still a year away from what we had hoped we would be this year. But the defense is better, so hopefully the offense can piece it together and get hot in the second half of the season, similar to how we did last year. Broader picture, I just think that it's another year that proves that the combination of NIL and the transfer portal has evened out the landscape of college football. You cannot hoard talent. Like, the elite tier programs cannot just stack guys on top of guys on top of guys on their depth chart and just hold them hostage until they need them. Those guys are moving around, and there's a lot more talent in a lot more different places, and so there's going to continue to be a lot more parity than we were used to under the previous era. But I think that's better for the sport, and I'm enjoying that. But you just have to, that applies to us too. The teams that we used to dominate and beat every year, i.e. Vandy, we have to accept that their roster is a lot closer to our roster than it used to be. But our roster is a lot closer to the teams that we have struggled to beat in the past than we used to be. So you just have to come prepared every week, and and anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah. I would say from my perspective, South Carolina, I'm just frustrated that we're not 5-0 right now. And I think we blew a huge opportunity to, or at least be 4-1, to be able to have this home stretch where you don't have to play perfect. We basically put ourselves in a position where we have to run the table. We mentioned a little bit. I mean, I think 9-3. There's definitely going to be a discussion. It just depends on who beats who and how the second half turns out. But frustrating to think that we're not 4-1 or 5-0. I think we're getting better though. From the sounds of it, the O-line played, at least the tackles played well against Kentucky. I still think the interior is an issue, but Lenoris is, I think, fully healthy now off of the head injury against Vandy, and he was running it well against Kentucky, and I think that's what got him going last year when he started making plays with his feet and being able to use his legs as a weapon in the offense and create something out of nothing. We're going to need it. We're going to need him to make some Superman plays against these teams we have on our schedule to win. I hope we can do it, because I want to keep talking about it, keep us in the conversation, and hopefully make a run at it. Overall, to your point, there's no great teams anymore, and for the reasons that you stated, you can't. These Bama teams and Georgia teams and Ohio States and the
Well, it's
LSU
just
gone are the days of
sorry to cut
teams.
you off, but I just thought of this. You know, I was watching some Barstool content, and someone actually made a good point that I agreed with. But they were talking about how Penn State let the wrong quarterback leave. You know, Drew Aller is struggling. They dropped that game to UCLA. Meanwhile, Bo Pribula is balling out at Missouri.
Yeah.
Pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal era, Bo is still probably on Penn State's roster. And I don't know if they would have benched Drew Aller, post Oregon game or not. But that's just like a prime example of guys that are leaving premier programs and having a lot of success at a different destination that you would not have seen 10 years ago.
Right. Well, and also to that specific situation too, pre-NIL, you might have seen Aller jump to the NFL.
True.
Even though he wasn't a projected first-round pick in last year's draft. Like, he might have said, I'm going to get drafted in the third or fourth round, and I can hopefully land on a good team and start making money and being a backup. Right. And see that as his path to NFL success. But he didn't go into the draft because he's like, I can make $3 or $4 million to be Penn State's quarterback. I'm sticking around.
Correct.
So, and also, I'm sure he wanted to come back and
compete for a championship.
Compete for a championship and right his wrongs from losing in the playoffs on an interception throw that he made. But that he doesn't come back to school, I don't think, in the pre-NIL era. So it's a very interesting college football.
Browns just downed it on the one. Defense, stand up.
Yeah. We got some London action, but let's recap the DB Blitz. I've been waiting to. So
yeah, I know.
What was your record this week? 1-4. Okay,
I had a very bad weekend. I apologize to the fans that tailed me this week. I was 1-4 yesterday. My one win being Miami -4.5. Although I still think that the Bama Vandy backdoor was a pretty brutal beat, considering the circumstances. But I was wrong on the Virginia Louisville over. Mississippi State fell apart in the second half after leading at one point in that game as a 2-touchdown underdog. And then Penn State obviously did not cover.
Maybe the worst pick of the year, Penn State.
That is my worst pick of the year. But again, I found that to be funny, to be honest. I was cheering. I was cheering for
you said, if
UCLA.
they're not going to cover, root for them to lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was 4-1. I am 8-2 the last 2 weeks. Ever since y'all were up in my DMs, #FadeBeck, I'm 8-2. So I'm going to continue to stay hot, and I'm 1 game below 500. I anticipate that will be 4 games over next week. I'm these 4-1 weeks. I'm close, so I'm anticipating a 5-0 week coming up. Iowa State was my stinker this week. Georgia covered. It was 3 touchdowns, but they were pretty dominant throughout the game, and it wasn't really a sweat. Kentucky scored a late touchdown to make it a 21-point game instead of 28. We were both on Miami. They looked good against FSU. Florida wins outright against Texas. Huh? What'd you say?
I said, speaking of backdoors, I had a guy that came in yesterday and asked what the final score to the Georgia-Kentucky game was, and he had Georgia minus 22. So he got backdoored by that late Kentucky touchdown.
Yikes. You gotta get these lines on Wednesday when they're right. Before, when the sharps like us start putting action on them, the lines tend to move. But a successful DB blitz for me. Ross wants us to mention that Clemson beat the shit out of UNC. Belichick is a joke. The 2-10 prophecy, one step closer to reality. Ross, you might have been spot on with that one, brother. UNC, it's basketball season for them. They are terrible, and I guess Belichick might just walk away. I don't know why he's doing this in the first place, but the experiment has been a massive failure, to say the least.
Probably the $10 million.
Right game for Pickens Tech. Huh?
I said it's probably the $10 million.
Well,
I said it's probably the $10 million.
Yeah. There's that. And he gets to make out with his girlfriend on the sideline. So UNC sucks. Clemson beats their ass. Clemson still also sucks. But I think that's a wrap. We're looking forward to getting back to Gamecock football. We'll talk about the upcoming game in Baton Rouge on Wednesday. I will be making the trip down to Baton Rouge, so we will get some fun. I'll hopefully be able to tell some stories on the recap episode after the LSU game. But as always, like and subscribe. Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Leave us some comments. Send in some questions. We always want to do listener questions and talk about stuff that the listeners are feeling and thinking about. So, again, appreciate everyone listening. And as always, go Cox.
Go Cox.